Hey everyone, the last week or so I've finally decided to get all of my Gwibbers from the Shadowbringers EX Trials, and I didn't set foot in a few of these fights before. I hate being the guy in Party Finder who has no idea what's going on and is constantly dying. So I was looking for guides on what I need to do for an unsynced run, and I couldn't really find anything up to date. There's some from Endwalker's launch, but even compared to those, you skip so many mechanics after 6.2, and so many things are cheesed. So you can likely guess where this is going. I'm going to put an obvious spoiler warning here that if you haven't finished at least the normal version of all of the Shadowbringers trials, there will be spoilers for boss names and mechanics. What I will cover in this video is 4 of the EX trials that are fairly easy. These will be the Dancing Plague, the Crown of the Immaculate, Cinder Drift, and the Cloud Deck. All extreme, of course. I will be covering Hades, Emerald Weapon, and Seed of Sacrifice in their own video as they are more mechanically involved. In this video, it's long enough as it is. Now, all of these fights will drop a mount. The mount is fairly rare and is not a guaranteed drop. You will also collect totems from these fights, which if you don't get a drop and win the roll, you can trade 99 totems for a mount by talking to Santana in Mordona. Other than the mount, these fights will also have a chance to drop a crafting material. The crafting material can also be obtained from desynthing the weapons from the guaranteed weapon drop and weapon coffers. For those of you after GIL, this is what you're here for. At the time of writing, there are only 3 of these, one being Hades, which I'm not covering here, that can be crafted into augmented weapons. The others can be crafted into a housing item and a set of barding for your chocobo. If you are after GIL, you may want to check your local prices before you begin farming. I will also note that more weapons will be introduced through the end of Endwalker, so you may want to try and farm these speculatively. Be warned, there is no known methodology to know which weapon will be released next, so do so at the risk of your own sanity. Now, I mostly want this to be a guide for clearing these EX fights versus a GIL farming guide. However, there are plenty of people in Party Finder joining parties simply to farm these materials for profit. So, do with this information what you will. Let's start things off with the first EX trial of the expansion, Titania, the Dancing Plague. This fight as of 6.2 has a known cheese method that is now widely used across Party Finder. Due to this, you can run this with a single tank and 7 DPS. No healer is required. Let's see what this fight looks like. You will open the fight freely DPSing. She will cast a raid-wide AoE in the form of Bright Sabbath. The damage from this is minimal and can be ignored. She will then cast Phantom Rune, indicating one of 2 possible mechanics. One will force players out, the other will force players into her hitbox. If she spreads her wings, this will indicate the out mechanic and players will need to run a ways outside of her hitbox. If her staff starts spinning around her, you will need to move inside her hitbox. If you are hit by this mechanic, you will be debuffed with Hysteria and your character will run around uncontrollably, unable to deal damage. These patterns are supposed to alternate, however, due to the DPS we do, I have never seen the mechanic that forces you inside her hitbox. The next mechanic will be Mist Rune. You will want to pause your DPS as you near 60% of the boss's health. If you pass 60% before she casts Mist Rune, you will not be able to execute the cheese as she will skip Mist Rune. Once she casts Mist Rune, you may resume DPS. This mechanic will cause 8 puddles to spawn in the arena. 4 of them at cardinal directions around the boss, and 4 at the intercardinal corners of the arena. You will need 1 player to stand in each of these puddles, as if there is not a player in each puddle by the time the small orbs go all the way around the puddle, an ad will spawn. Once you prevent the ads from spawning, players should meet in the middle as she will place a stack marker on 2 random DPS. Players will need to take these stacks while standing in the middle puddles as they reduce your weakness to fire. These must be different puddles as once she hits the first stack, the puddle will disappear. Your stacks do not need to be even, because if you take them in the puddle, 2 players is more than enough to take negligible damage. While this is happening, you will want to continue your DPS. However, pause before you hit 25% HP on Titania. Many people will just sheathe their weapons around 26%. What you are looking for is a voice line. She will say, "We are sick of this cramped old castle, let's play in the forest." At this point, she will transform the arena and tether a player. The tank will need to grab this tether from any DPS as it is a hard-hitting AoE tank buster. The tank will need to mitigate heavily and stand away from the party. Once you see the voice line, "This may tingle a bit," you are free to begin DPS again. What we have done is locked her in this tank buster phase, and you will be able to kill her before ever entering ad phase. Titania will have the rare chance to drop a fake Wibber Trumpet as well as a Dancing Wing. A random weapon as well as a weapon coffer are guaranteed drops. The Dancing Wing is currently one of the crafting materials that can be crafted into an augmented weapon. Remember, if you are after the wings, you will want to roll on the weapons as they can be desynthesized for a chance to obtain a wing. After Titania, we have the Crown of the Immaculate, with our opponent, Stupid, Sexy Vothri. I'm gonna be honest, this fight was a joke and easily farmable before Endwalker launched. This can now be farmed in under 2.5 minutes, and it doesn't have any dangerous mechanics. I'm not kidding, go in blind and you will learn the whole fight in one run. The single thing you need to know is if you get marked with a red marker, run it to a corner like I show here so you don't run it through the party. They aren't even in danger, it just makes you look smart. Sadly, the crafting material from this trial isn't worth anything, so only run this if you need the mount. After you've bullied Vothri enough to the point he gives you your dragon, our next trial is Cinder Drift against the Ruby weapon. Now I've cleared this fight with 8 DPS. Even if you go in with a tank and healer, you should skip most mechanics. However, this depends heavily on your group's DPS. Should you get into a lower DPS group, I will go over the few mechanics you might see. In the first phase, even with high enough damage, you will have to worry about FFXIV. This will be a kind of pinwheel of AoEs that will show an initial marker and then move out along the line it draws. The safe spot is hard to explain, but you kind of want to be a little ways to the left of where 2 of the AoEs cross. This one may take some time to feel out, but even if you get hit, it's not the end of the world. Now, if you notice from the footage, while these are going off, there will be Magitech bits targeting random players. So try to stand away from where you want to be for FFXIV, and then move into it after the Magitech bits place their AoE. Should you get hit by both, you could die. Should you see Raven's Claw, you will need to move to the outside of the arena, identifying the safe spot in line with the short fissures. Once the fissures detonate, Ruby Weapon will cast one of 2 abilities, Liquefaction or Undermine. To handle Liquefaction, each player will need to pick a fissure. You will then stand at the very tip, and after each hit of the meteor, you will move outside of the circle created by the marker on you. You will then place the next one as close as possible to the first while moving along your fissure. There will be 3 in total, and you need to stay on your fissure as you move. To handle Undermine, you will stand in a safe area away from the plasma puddles and do the same method of placing the small meteor circles as close to each other as possible. This is the easier one as you don't have to stand on the fissures. However, be aware of group PvP and try not to drop them on your party members. By the end of this mechanic, the boss should be at 0.1% health and begin his phase change. It does not matter if anyone died to Raven's Claw, as this is a door boss and you can just tag the boss by hitting it once and then wipe on the wall of the arena. You will reset in front of the boss already in the second phase and avoid the weakness you would get by rezzing people. The only mechanic you have to worry about in this phase is the ads. When the boss casts Meteor Project, they will begin summoning 2 ads. The boss will become invulnerable after casting negative personae. You will then be given a debuff, red or blue. You will attack the ad of the color opposite of your debuff. The most important part of this phase is to be aware of your positioning. If the 2 primary targets of the ads pull them too close to each other, they will become invulnerable and will start casting abilities which prevents you from pulling them apart. If they aren't pulled too close, you should be able to kill them before they are able to cast their abilities. However, should this happen, each ad will cast one of the following abilities. Iron Chariot is a point-blank AoE underneath the ad. Lunar Dynamo is a large donut around the ad, which if hit by can knock you into the wall for an instant kill. Be aware that each ad could cast the same ability, or they could each cast a different one. Once the ads are dead, you may resume attacking the boss and should be able to kill her before any more mechanics happen. Ruby Weapon will drop the Guaranteed Coffer and Random Weapon. It also has a chance to drop a Ruby Quiver Trumpet as well as a Ruby Plating. This is the other trial that has a crafting material that can be crafted into an augmented weapon. Now we arrive at our final fight of the video. The breakdown of this fight is a bit more wordy than the others, however wordy does not correlate to difficulty. Once you've got the mechanics of this fight down, it's just as easy as the others. In this fight, we will be going up against the Diamond Weapon. We will be fighting on platforms and are able to teleport between them. Do note that if you step on a teleporter, you are marked with a debuff that prevents you from teleporting again for 20 seconds. So do your best not to step on them if you don't have to. This fight can be done in many configurations, however they almost always involve a single healer. Many groups will only bring one tank, however the boss has many attacks that will target the top 2 players on the enmity list. If the top DPS isn't a melee with some type of personal mitigation, it is very likely that your top DPS will die to a flare mechanic. This is why the safest configuration is 2 tanks. However, this can easily vary based on your group composition. Communicate with your party members and find what works best for you. The first mechanic you will see is Diamond Rain. This is a very hard hitting raid-wide attack. Shield and heal as necessary. The boss will then cast Adamant Purge. This is the most deadly mechanic of the fight, but once you get it down, it's fairly easy. This mechanic has 2 parts, the first part being his claws. The boss will open large purple claws on one side of his body. If you are on the platform on this side of the body, you will want to take a teleporter to the other side as he will rake the entire platform with his claws. You now have to determine the second half. The boss will telegraph either a stack mechanic, a spread mechanic, or neither. If it is a spread, the boss's shoulders will open, revealing glowing rocket launchers. It looks like this. You will then want to spread a reasonable distance from each other and just be extra cautious on your first run and you'll be able to visualize the distance from then on out. If it is a stack, the boss will open a large glowing cannon on his chest. You will want to stack in the middle of the platform. Do note, the claws will always happen, however there can be no stack or spread and the boss won't telegraph either mechanic. The next mechanic is Photon Burst. The boss will mark the top 2 players on the enmity list with flare markers. These can simply be moved to the corners of the platform you are on without going to the other platform. Once the flares detonate, the boss will attack these players with auto attacks in the form of lasers. These lasers will then hit any player standing behind the primary target. The players with the flares should stay on the outside corners until these autos are done. These mechanics will repeat until the boss casts Code Key 11 Stigma. The boss will then disappear from the arena and players will be marked with tethers. There will be a knockback circle at one end of your platform. If your tether is pink, you want to be knocked to the other side. You will stand at either 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, just outside the circle depending on which way you need to get knocked. Players with a purple tether will stand at 6 o'clock and be knocked along the platform that they are on. If a pink tether stays on the platform or a purple tether goes across, the player will die as their tether was not stretched far enough. Once all players land, the boss will return and mark one platform with a platform-wide AoE. Any players on this platform will need to take a teleporter to the other side. After this, the boss will then drop onto the platform and cast Outrage, which is a raid-wide attack. It only hits for about a quarter of the DPS's health, however you may want to mitigate this if you have a ways to go before killing it. Most groups with decent DPS can kill him in this phase. If there were deaths or if your damage is low though, you might see the mechanic RE Arts. The boss will face one edge of the platform during the cast. Players should move into the triangle behind the boss. They will then zigzag along the platform, knocking off any players in their path. After the zigzag, the boss will hang in the middle of the platform and face an orb on the north or south side of the platform. You want to see which half of the platform that orb is on and either stay or move to the side it is not on. The boss will then jump to this orb and dash through the platform, knocking off players they collide with. The boss will then return to the platform, cast one more Outrage, and then cast RE Doomstead, a hard-hitting tank buster. If the boss is not killed in this window before it casts RE Arts 2, I would recommend just wiping and focus on cleaning up previous phases, as in a normal farm clear you should not even see RE Arts 1, this especially being true once patch 6.4 drops. If you couldn't guess, the diamond weapon drops a random weapon and weapon coffer. It also has a chance to drop a diamond gwibber trumpet and a diamond plating. The diamond plating currently does not have a craftable weapon. And that's it. I know for many of you out there this wasn't a necessary guide or anything you needed, but I hope you still enjoyed the video regardless. I have done nothing for the last week except write, record, edit, and re-edit this video. So the next one's gonna have a bit healthier of a production schedule, so don't expect to see it too soon, but I'll be working behind the scenes. I also want to thank all of you who've subscribed. I made a video that I thought 50 people would see, and now 50,000 people have seen it. And 1,000 of you have actively signed up to see more. So I hope this video lived up to your expectations, and I hope I can continue to meet them in the future. Until next time.